인간의 머리를 빼앗아 버립니다.
네 안에 있는 기생생물.
Parasyte. The Gray expands the unsettling universe of parasitic horror into a darker, more grounded setting, reimagining the core idea of alien organisms invading human bodies, while blending it with modern social tension and psychological dread. Rather than simply retelling an older story, this project approaches the concept as a fresh evolution, focusing on how humanity reacts when it realizes that the enemy is not arriving with loud destruction but silently blending in. The tone is bleak, tense, and disturbing, aiming to unsettle the audience not through constant action, but through the creeping realization that normal life can no longer be trusted. The story is set in contemporary South Korea, where mysterious parasitic life forms suddenly begin appearing without warning. These creatures infiltrate human hosts, taking control of their bodies and disguising themselves perfectly as ordinary people. Unlike traditional alien invasion stories, there is no clear moment when the world realizes what is happening. Instead, strange crimes, violent incidents, and unexplained behavior slowly hint that something is terribly wrong. The parasites are intelligent, adaptive, and ruthless, feeding on humans while learning how to survive within society. At the center of the story is a young woman who becomes partially infected by a parasite that fails to fully take over her body. This incomplete fusion creates a unique situation where the human and parasite are forced into an uneasy coexistence. Unlike other infected hosts who lose their humanity completely, she retains control of her mind while the parasite inhabits part of her body. This internal conflict becomes one of the emotional cores of the story, as she struggles with fear, identity, and the terrifying realization that she is no longer fully human, yet not entirely a monster either. The relationship between the protagonist and the parasite is tense and unpredictable. The parasite is not portrayed as purely evil, but as a survival-driven organism with its own logic and instincts. It lacks human emotion, viewing people as resources rather than individuals. Yet over time it begins to observe and question human behavior through its host. This dynamic creates morally complex situations where survival, empathy, and self-preservation clash. The protagonist is constantly forced to decide whether to trust the creature inside her or treat it as an enemy waiting for the right moment to strike. Parallel to her story, the narrative introduces a specialized task force formed to investigate and eliminate the parasitic threat. This group operates in secrecy, aware that public panic would cause chaos if the truth were revealed. Their mission is complicated by the fact that parasites are indistinguishable from humans unless they reveal themselves. This leads to intense confrontations filled with paranoia, where even allies are suspected of being infected. The task force members themselves are deeply scarred individuals, each driven by personal loss, duty, or obsession. One of the most compelling aspects of Parasyte, The Gray, is how it explores the idea of humanity from multiple perspectives. The parasites view humans as fragile, wasteful, and hypocritical, while humans see parasites as soulless invaders that must be destroyed. Through violent encounters and philosophical exchanges, the story challenges the audience to question whether humanity is defined by biology, emotion, or choice. As the lines blur, some parasites begin to adapt in unexpected ways, while certain humans reveal monstrous behavior of their own. The plot steadily escalates as parasitic incidents become more frequent and harder to contain. What begins as isolated cases turns into a larger conspiracy, suggesting that the parasites may be organizing rather than acting alone. This raises the stakes dramatically, transforming the story from a personal survival tale into a broader struggle for the future of society. The protagonist finds herself caught between the task force, who see her as a potential threat, and the parasites, who see her as an anomaly that could change the balance of power. Violence in the film is sudden, brutal, and deeply unsettling. The parasite's ability to reshape human bodies into grotesque weapons adds a strong body horror element, staying true to the disturbing roots of the concept. These transformations are not glorified but presented as horrifying violations of the human form. Each battle feels dangerous and desperate, emphasizing that no one is safe and survival often comes at a terrible cost. The cast brings emotional weight and realism to the story, grounding the supernatural elements in believable performances. The lead actress portrays the protagonist with a mix of vulnerability and resilience, capturing the fear of losing oneself while still fighting to retain humanity. Her performance carries much of the emotional burden, especially during moments where she must confront what she is becoming. The supporting cast, including task force members and key antagonists, adds depth to the world, making each confrontation feel personal rather than generic. Antagonistic parasites are not presented as identical villains but as individuals with distinct personalities and strategies. Some choose to hide and manipulate from the shadows, while others embrace violence openly. This variety keeps the narrative unpredictable and reinforces the idea that the real danger lies in not knowing who or what you are dealing with. Certain parasite characters even display twisted forms of curiosity about human emotions, creating unsettling scenes where empathy and cruelty coexist. Visually, Parasyte, the Grey adopts a gritty, realistic aesthetic that contrasts sharply with the unnatural horror of the parasites. Urban environments, everyday workplaces, and ordinary homes become sites of terror, reinforcing the idea that safety is an illusion. The cinematography often uses tight framing and dim lighting to create a sense of confinement and unease. When the parasites reveal themselves, the sudden shift to graphic imagery feels shocking and invasive. The sound design plays a key role in maintaining tension. Subtle, unsettling audio cues accompany moments of transformation or danger, often building anxiety before anything is shown on screen. Silence is frequently used to heighten suspense, forcing the audience to focus on small movements or expressions that may signal something is wrong. The score remains restrained, allowing the horror to feel grounded and realistic rather than exaggerated. The release of Parasyte, the Grey, generated strong interest due to its connection to a well-known concept while presenting itself as a standalone story. Rather than relying solely on nostalgia, it positioned itself as a darker, more mature reimagining tailored to modern audiences. Its release timing aligned with growing interest in high-quality genre storytelling, allowing it to stand out among other thriller and horror projects. Promotional footage emphasized atmosphere, tension, and mystery rather than revealing major plot points. The trailers focused on unsettling imagery, fragmented glimpses of parasite transformations, and the emotional struggle of the protagonist. By keeping many details hidden, the marketing created curiosity and unease, encouraging viewers to experience the story without knowing exactly what to expect. The emphasis was clearly on psychological horror rather than non-stop action. Thematically, the film reflects modern anxieties about identity, trust, and coexistence. In a world where people already feel disconnected and suspicious of one another, the idea of parasites hiding in plain sight feels disturbingly relevant. The story questions whether coexistence between humans and parasites is possible, or whether one side must inevitably destroy the other. Through its characters, it explores how fear can drive violence, but also how understanding can emerge in the most unlikely circumstances. As the story moves toward its climax, the protagonist is forced to make a defining choice that will determine not only her fate, but potentially the future relationship between humans and parasites. This decision is shaped by everything she has experienced, including betrayal, loss, and moments of unexpected connection. The final act delivers intense confrontations that test her resolve and challenge the assumptions held by both sides. The ending avoids simple answers, instead leaving the audience with lingering questions about survival, morality, and what it truly means to be human. Rather than offering complete closure, it suggests that the conflict is far from over and that the world has been permanently changed. This open-ended approach reinforces the story's core message that coexistence and conflict are ongoing struggles, not problems with easy solutions. Overall, Parasyte, the Grey stands as a powerful and disturbing addition to the parasite horror genre, blending visceral body horror with emotional and philosophical depth. Its focus on character, atmosphere, and moral ambiguity allows it to rise above standard monster narratives. By grounding its horror in human fear and identity, It delivers a chilling experience that stays with the audience long after the story ends, making it a compelling watch for viewers drawn to dark, thought-provoking storytelling.